Well, hey everyone, welcome back to the Intentional Youth Ministry channel. I want to take a moment today and talk to you guys about, I guess if you were going to title this video, you could title it "Making It Sticky." Making it sticky. And so this is a term that I've kind of used and coined over the last several years of doing student ministry. And I would just encourage you, when you're thinking about programming, when you're thinking about sermon content, series, messages you preach, I want to encourage you with this idea of making it sticky. Let me kind of break that down, unpackage a little bit about what I mean by that and how that could play out in various areas of what you're doing. So in the context of like a sermon series, message, something like that, I'll give you some examples of this. So you're going to do a message on, or a series, right? A sermon series on relationships and dating and purity, maybe something in that vein. So years ago, what I would do is I would start sitting down with a team, just a handful of people who I thought were creative. Some of our adult leaders at the time, volunteers, students, even student leaders. And then eventually that became staff that we were doing this with. But at the time, when we were smaller and starting out, I would do this with volunteers. And I would kind of give them the idea, hey guys, so we want to do a series about dating and relationships. And then I would say, okay, let's dream and brainstorm creatively of how we can make this happen and what it could be like. And so in that, we would come up with all these really creative ideas. So I'll give you an example of one of them. So one of the ideas we had years ago was we did a relationship series, and we called it Dates on a Plane. Dates on a Plane. And literally what we did was we did this whole like 4-part sermon series around dating and relationships, but we packaged it through this creative lens of all things flying, airplanes and flying. So what we did was we actually, in our youth auditorium, we actually set up all of the seats to look like airplane rows, 3 seats, 5 seats, 3 seats. We had music playing in the background pre-service that was talking about flying and planes and all kinds of stuff like that. Then as students came in, they would sit down in their seats, and kind of our after worship, like our sermon kind of video and opening was we created like a mock flight announcement thing. So we had volunteer leaders that were flight attendants. They were all dressed up. They gave instructions about the service and just had fun with it. Then they actually walked through the aisles, and we had ordered little bags of like airline snacks, peanuts, pretzels, you name it. And literally they would walk through before, and they would hand them out to the youth auditorium. And so all of them had a little snack kind of vibe tying in with the airline thing. Then as the lights came up, the stage would have on there various things from luggage and traveling stuff and all kinds of stuff. And then we had for them notes, like sermon notes. They all looked like boarding passes, and they actually said boarding pass, and it had like the week one, and it gave them the topics and what we were going to talk about. And so then each week we had a different topic. We had things like, standby, and we talked about waiting for God's best and not being in a hurry to date and jump into relationships. We did things like baggage. We had baggage all over the stage and luggage, and we talked about, when you start crossing lines in your relationships, that you pick up relationship baggage. We even talked about, one of the weeks was terrorist, and we talked about things that can destroy your relationships. Destination. We talked about, you wouldn't jump onto a plane and fly somewhere without any idea where the plane was going. So why is it that we do that in our dating relationships? You get the gist. So creatively packaging it so that it was very sticky, right? So that students would leave there and not forget what we've said. I've talked about, and I talk about sometimes the importance of relationships, and what happens Monday through Friday is more important even than a service that we do. But I think sometimes we also can use that as an excuse. If you've ever said something like this, like, oh, students don't remember the messages we preach. I hear what you're saying. The relationships are more important than the messages that we preach. However, I think sometimes we use that as a cop-out to not be intentional about building sticky content that actually speaks to them in the season that they're in. And so this idea of building ministry that is sticky, really the idea is, can you build your ministry, your events, your services, your series in a way where it actually is going to stick with the kids? I'll never forget, I did another relationship series a couple of years back where I had Skittles on the platform, and it was another one on relationships. And I literally had every kind of Skittle. I went and bought not Skittles, M&Ms. I bought every kind of M&M that I could find. I mean, almond M&Ms and peanut butter and pretzel. And let's all agree, peanut butter are the best. But pretzel and almond and mint and you name it, right? I got every kind of M&M that I could find. And the whole concept that I talked about is that oftentimes we treat our dating relationships like trying the latest flavor of M&Ms, and we hop from one to the next, always wanting to try something new. And I just kind of parallel that with our dating relationships. Can I tell you, years later, I still have people come up to me and go, "Oh, you're the M&M guy. Yeah, you talked about dating and how M&Ms and how it ties in." I say that to say, anytime we can take anything that we're doing, if that is an event, if that is a sermon series, anything that we're offering to our young people, and we can make it sticky. In other words, do something that's going to really stick with them, that's going to last, that they're not going to walk out the doors and forget the very thing that we said. I think oftentimes I hear people say like, "Oh yeah, like, if you've got kids, you've probably done this before. You ask your kids, 'Hey, what did you learn at school today?' Or 'What did you learn at church today?' And their response is, 'I don't know.' Man, I made it a point to where that's part of the culture, that's part of life. But I don't want students to ever have that conversation with their parents in the car ride home after leaving or being picked up from our youth service. I want to communicate in a way and create an event or create an experience in a way that it's going to really stick with them, that will make an impact on their life, not just something they're going to forget because I didn't really target them and use some stuff that was really sticky and intentional." So hopefully that makes sense. I will dig into some more of that in the future, but I just want to encourage you, when you're planning events and services and series, make it sticky.